You will hear idiots like Dave Rubin actually do like no, it's the left that's racist because they talk about it all the time. At actually literally the same moment where there is a presidential administration that is looking to create a detention facility, a concentration camp for children, an administration targeting not only immigrants across the board, but now refugee asylum seekers, the same people who've stripped people fleeing life-threatening and domestic abuse off the list of reasons to get refuge in a country. Of course, they're not racist. It's, I don't know, some college professor that teaches a course on media representation. That's where the real racism's coming. Makes total sense. So what happens is that sometimes guys like David Stringer, Arizona State rep, he comes out and he reminds everybody that actually not only is the Republican Party racist, it's actually structurally racist in the sense that their strategic alignment as a party of white identity politics, a fusion of oligarch policies and xenophobic resentment, hinges on keeping America de-diversified as an electoral strategy. And I appreciate Dave Stringer not hiding the ball here.
60% of public school children in the state of Arizona today are minorities. That complicates racial integration because there aren't enough white kids to go around. But when you look at that 60% number for our public school students, just carry that forward 10 years, 15 years, it's going to change the demographic voting base of this state. And that's what's going on around the country. Immigration is politically destabilizing. President Trump has talked about this. I'm very concerned about this. This immigration today represents an existential threat to the United States. If we don't do something about immigration, very, very soon, the demographics of our country will be irrevocably changed, and we will be a very different country. It will not be the country you were born into.
Let's, as a certain type of internet pennant would say, let's steelman not his argument, but another argument. Let's say that there is a fraction, an infinitesimal small amount of people, and this in some ways would apply to certain conversations a bit more in Europe, that say that they are they're not racist, they're not bigots, they're not opposed to immigration, they're not opposed to diversity, but they have legitimate questions and concerns about how communities change, but also keep certain continuities, and a kind of argument that multiculturalism goes both ways, right? Now, that is not the Republican argument remotely, but let's just say those are a handful of people out there that are actually saying that. And that is, every time you hear a defense of the rampant racism, xenophobia, fear-mongering of the Republican Party, and that's the game. Tucker Carlson tries to make it sound like that's what he's talking about. I'm not opposed to immigration. I'm talking about cultural change. Well, there's the actual policy and the actual concern there. That guy didn't say we need to figure out how communities can keep cohesion as they diversify and deal with some of those challenges, right? He didn't say that. That's a legitimate, you can agree or disagree, but that's a valid perspective to talk about and figure out. And that is actually a job of policymakers at some points, and of civic leaders, and of people in all communities. What he said, and let's be really clear about that, was first, there aren't enough white kids to go around. And I believe somebody in the audience like groaned or said something, oh, the white kid's not going around, which is just a weird and overtly racist formulation in and of itself. And then he said, it's going to look different, and the demographics threaten us, essentially, which was a hybrid electoral threat to us, and we don't want brown people here argument. Not how do we integrate, how do we renew the melting pot, and even all these stuff which you can make a very centrist-y argument around. He wasn't doing any of that. So stop trying to assign good faith to these people where none exists. And speaking of which, Steve King did us the favor, the despicable bigot congressman from Iowa, of retweeting a literal British neo-Nazi who wrote 65%, this is Mark Collette, 65% of Italians under the age of 35 now oppose mass immigration. Europe is waking up. Steve King quote tweeted him and said, Europe is waking up. Will America, in time? Steve King has also said things like diversity is not our strength. A lot of dreamers are drug mules with cantaloupe calves for drugs. And has not even answered direct questions about holding white supremacist views. That is the Republican Party. Not a concern about civic cohesion and balancing change. Raw racism by instinct, strategy, and temperament. And anybody who tells you otherwise is lying, stupid, or has no idea what they're talking about, or just some fusion of all of the above.